There is a place in the highlands where the mountains whisper and the winds hum lullabies to the lonely. The people of Njili village say that if you listen closely on a cold morning, when the fog wraps around your ankles like an old spirit, you will hear her, the ghost singer. She does not weep. She sings. Long ago, when the highlands were younger and the stars felt closer, there lived a girl named Ogi, born to the smallest hut in the farthest bend of the valley. Her mother was a potter, her father a man of silence. But Ogi was born with a voice that made crickets stop chirping, a voice that made even the sunflowers tilt toward her when she sang. At just 5, her lullabies calmed colicky babies across 3 villages. By 10, the elders stopped telling stories just to listen to her evening songs. And by 12, she was known not only in Njili, but in every mountain village whose people followed the rivers downhill to trade. But it was not always joy her voice brought. It stirred things, ancient things. Her grandmother warned her early. The mountains love your voice, child, but they are jealous. They will keep what they love too much. Ogi laughed then, youthful and untouched by consequence. She loved singing. She sang in the mornings while grinding millet. She sang to the goats as they grazed. She even sang in the burial grounds, when sent with offerings to the ancestors. The village warned her. There are places where silence is sacred. But Ogi believed no harm could come from beauty. Then, one morning, the sky turned the color of ashes. A strange fog crept into the village. Not from below, like mist from the river, but from above. Down from the mountain peak it came, slow and deliberate, winding between trees like it was looking for something. Someone. Ogi had gone out to fetch firewood. She never came back. The villagers searched for days. They climbed trees. They called her name. Her parents sacrificed goats and chickens. Her grandmother wailed until her eyes were red as coals. But no one found a single thread of her dress. Not a footprint. Not even a broken twig. Only the singing remained. At first they thought it was the wind. But the melody, haunting and beautiful, was hers. It rose in the early morning fog and lingered through the dusk. Her grandmother knew. They've taken her. The mountains. The village changed. No one spoke loudly. Children were no longer allowed near the cliffs. The festival drums grew quieter. People avoided humming even when alone. The land mourned, and so did they. But year after year, Ogi's voice drifted back with the mists. At first it was just a melody, sorrowful and soft. Then came words. Songs of regret. Songs of longing. Songs that told of a place between life and death, where souls wandered like lost cattle, bound by memory and song. Some said she had become a spirit guide, warning those who strayed too close to sacred paths. Others whispered she was cursed, taken by the mountain for singing in the burial grounds. Her voice now used to lure others into the mist. But her grandmother, she believed something different. She sings because she wants to come home. Years passed. Children grew up hearing tales of Ogi, the girl who sang too beautifully for this world. Parents used her story to caution the reckless. Travelers from far-off valleys made pilgrimages to the cliffs, hoping to hear the ghost song. But no one ever saw her, until the rainy season when the river overflowed and a stranger came to Njili. The year Ogi's song grew louder was the year the rains refused to stop. Thunder rolled across the mountains for weeks, and swollen clouds poured their weight onto the highlands until rivers leapt their banks and paths turned to mud. Crops drowned in the fields. Homes wept from their rooftops. And still Ogi sang, louder than she had in years. The villagers said she was warning them. Others whispered that she wept for something coming. Then the stranger arrived. He came with the storm, a young man with a leather drum slung across his back and a half-smile carved permanently into his face. He wore sandals made of hide and a cloak stained by travel. His name was Jado, and he claimed to be a drummer from the lowlands, traveling through the hills to find the source of a voice he'd once heard in a dream. At first, the villagers offered him dry firewood and soup, as was the custom. But when he asked about Ogi, they grew silent. Ogi's song is not for chasing, one elder warned. It is a song of sorrow, not an invitation. But Jado, young and full of rhythm, did not believe in ghost stories. He laughed at the mist, played his drum beside it. Where others saw dread, he saw poetry. Where they warned of danger, he dreamed of duets. A voice like that, he said, should be remembered, not feared. Ogi's grandmother, now bent and gray like a tree forgotten by fruit, summoned him one evening. She looked at Jado for a long time before speaking. "You think your drum can reach her?" she asked. "If she's real," he said, "she'll hear it." "She'll hear you," the old woman replied. "But will she let you leave?" She gave him a carved bone pendant and told him to wear it at all times. "It's not protection," she whispered. "It's memory. So if you forget who you are in the mist, the mountain won't." The next morning, Jado set out alone. The villagers watched him go, drum strapped to his chest, head held high. The mists were thick, swallowing the trail beyond the sacred cliff. But he walked on, following the music only he could hear beneath the howling wind. And then silence. For 3 days, nothing. On the 4th morning, her voice returned, but different. It was no longer mournful, it was curious. The melody danced with his rhythm now, twisting like mist around the cliffs. People stood outside their homes, listening. Some said they heard 2 voices. Others swore they saw a shadow moving through the fog, holding something that beat like a drum. But no one saw Jado again. Not his body, not his drum. Only a new song, one the villagers had never heard before. It was Ogi's voice, yes, but something new had joined her. A beat beneath her sorrow, a rhythm inside her longing, a pulse that told the mountains, "I am not singing alone anymore." And that is when the dreams began. Children started waking with melodies they didn't know. Women hummed harmonies in their sleep. The old began to sway when the wind blew through the valley. It was as though the mountain had opened, and Ogi's song had found a way into the hearts of the living. But her grandmother knew the truth. "She's closer now," she said, "but something still binds her." That night, the voice in the mist didn't sing. It whispered a name. Naya. Naya had always felt like a jar with no water. She walked among the living, yes. She laughed when others laughed. She helped her mother weave and sold herbs in the village square. But she could not cry, could not dream, could not feel the wind on her cheeks even when it howled around her. It was as though something had been scooped from her chest at birth, a piece that never quite grew back. She did not know she was Ogi's blood. Her mother, fearing the stories, had never told her. She'd burned every carving, hid every trace. Ogi's name had not been spoken in their home for 14 years. But Naya always felt drawn to the cliffs. Even as a child, she would slip away and sit among the rocks, humming melodies she had never been taught. She'd close her eyes and hear a voice calling her softly, like wind through reeds. And lately, she'd begun hearing it in her sleep. Not the song. The name, Naya, came at dawn. Came when she stood near water. It came when she tried to laugh but couldn't find the will. The name wrapped itself around her like smoke, curling into the parts of her she didn't know were broken. Then came the mirror. It was an old shard, half buried behind her grandmother's hut. She found it after a storm, glinting, covered in moss. When she held it up, the glass showed not her face but someone else's. A girl with eyes like hers. A girl in white, singing with her mouth open but no sound coming out. Behind her was the mist, not cloudy, but shaped like fingers, reaching for the girl's shoulders. Naya dropped the mirror. But that night, her mother found her standing outside in the rain, humming a tune neither of them knew. The next day, her grandmother called her by name, not child, not you, but Naya, and told her the truth. "You are Ogi's blood. Her silence lives in you." The old woman's hands trembled as she pulled out a faded pendant, the same carved bone she had once given Jado. He followed her into the mist and gave her rhythm. "But she still needs one more thing to cross back." "What?" Naya asked. "A heart. I don't understand." "You will," she said, "because the hollow part inside you is hers." Naya wept then, not out of fear, but because it was the first time in her life she felt full. like someone had finally named the emptiness inside her. That night, the voice sang again. Only this time it was clearer than it had ever been. Villagers gathered at their doorsteps, awestruck, because it no longer sounded like sorrow. It sounded like hope. And as the song rose through the fog, something changed in the village. An old fig tree bloomed out of season. A blind boy opened his eyes and said, "She's coming." The river, which had turned to sludge after the rains, began to run clear. And in her hut, Naya began to hum. Not a song she'd learned, but one passed through blood, through dreams, through the space between life and death. She knew what she had to do. They say the mountain holds secrets it will only reveal to those who walk it with silence in their soul. Naya walked barefoot. The path to the crossing place began behind the last tree of the village, a crooked baobab older than any living elder. It was said to grow from the grave of a woman who once defied the spirits and vanished into mist. That woman Naya now knew was Ogi. Her grandmother walked her to the base of the tree. "Do not follow the voice," she warned. "Let it follow you. If you listen too closely, it will pull you into the mist before you are ready." Naya nodded. The pendant Jado once wore now hung around her neck, the bone cool against her skin. Her mother tried to stop her from going. She cried, shouted, begged. But Naya had already made peace with the choice. There was a pull now, not just to the voice, but to something greater. She didn't feel afraid. She felt invited. The mountain trail was steep. Fog thickened with each step. Trees thinned until there was only rock, wind, and silence. Then came the whispers, faint, like breaths on her neck. Not threatening, but familiar. By midday the world turned white. She had reached the place of no time, where the living and the lost brushed against one another like clouds. It was here, atop a ridge cracked like old skin, that she saw it. A circle of stones scorched black by ancient fire, and standing in the center Ogi. She was exactly as the mirror had shown. Tall, pale-skinned, dressed in white. Her feet hovered inches above the ground. Her eyes were not eyes but mirrors, too, reflecting Naya's face, and something deeper inside her. Ogi did not speak. She sang. Not loud, not sorrowful. A low, trembling melody, like something being remembered after centuries of silence. The notes reached into Naya's ribs and stirred everything she had never dared feel. Grief, awe, hunger. The warmth of a mother's embrace she'd long forgotten. And when Ogi reached out her hand, Naya did not hesitate. Their palms touched. Suddenly, Naya was no longer standing on stone. She was in a memory. Flames crackled. Villagers screamed. The stage collapsed. Ogi's final song rang out over the chaos, but it was not a song of pride. It was an apology. Naya saw the accident unfold. The jealous rival pushing the oil lamp. The dry grass igniting. The crowd turning. The panic. The betrayal. Ogi wasn't singing for fame. She had been trying to calm them. But the fire consumed her before she could be heard. She had not died angry. She had died regretful. Alone. Mourned by no one. Buried in secret by the elders who wanted her forgotten. Until her voice found the wind and refused to fade. When the memory faded, Naya understood. "You don't want to come back," she whispered. "You want to let go." Ogi nodded, her face softening. The mist around them began to swirl, a wind rising from deep within the mountain. The pendant on Naya's neck cracked, not broken, but opened, revealing a tiny bead of dried red resin inside. A tear from Ogi's mother, preserved all these years. Naya pressed it against Ogi's chest. The spirit gasped. Light burst from within her. Not burning, not blinding, but warm, golden. Like the sun finally reaching a cave that had waited for centuries. Her voice, now free of sorrow, soared into the sky like a bird released. And she smiled. Ogi, the ghost singer, began to fade. "Thank you," she whispered. Not with her mouth, but with her music. And then she was gone. The mist cleared. Naya stood alone in the circle of stones. The wind still, the mountain silent. But in her chest, she felt full. Not haunted, not hollow, just whole. The mountain did not echo when Naya descended. It sang, not with words, but with a deep, breath-like hum that pulsed in the earth beneath her feet. It felt like gratitude, as though the land itself had been holding its breath for years and was finally exhaling. She reached the base of the mountain just as the sun crested the highland cliffs. Villagers, who had gathered near the crooked baobab in fear and prayer, turned at the sound of approaching footsteps. But it wasn't her steps they heard, it was her voice. Naya was singing, not in sorrow, not in fear, but with a warmth that lifted the mist from the valley. Children who had never spoken began to hum. Birds landed on rooftops to listen. And the river, which had run shallow and muddy for 2 seasons, now sparkled and surged with life. Grandmothers wept without knowing why. Fathers who had lost daughters in childbirth found themselves clutching their chests as if something sacred had just passed through them. And Naya, who had once walked with hollow steps, now walked like someone who belonged to both earth and sky. She did not explain. She did not need to. The pendant she once wore had turned to dust in her hand. The bone, the resin, the relic of grief, all returned to the soil. But her song stayed. Months passed. Rain returned. Crops flourished. And something else began to bloom. Forgiveness. The elders, once ashamed of what they had done to Ogi, confessed before the village. They admitted to burying the truth, to silencing her legacy, to fearing the very gift that made their people extraordinary. "We thought music would bring madness," one old man said. "But we were already mad from fear." Instead of punishment, the people built a shrine, not of stone or wood, but of sound. Each family offered a song, some mournful, some joyful, all honest. And in the center of the village square, they raised a small platform. No one was forced to stand on it, but anyone with a song in their soul could come forward, even if they were trembling. Naya stood first, then a blind girl who had only ever spoken in murmurs, then a boy whose father had never said, "I love you." The stage did not bring fame. It brought healing. Naya could have become a legend. Her voice carried farther than any storm. Traders from neighboring villages brought offerings just to hear her hum. Chiefs sent gifts. A traveling poet offered to follow her forever and record every syllable she uttered. But she refused the titles. She refused the gold. She became a teacher, not of music, but of listening. She taught children to listen to the wind, to rivers, to silence. She taught them to name their grief, not bury it. And once a year, on the day the fog danced highest along the cliffs, she sang the song that Ogi had once carried alone. Only this time it ended with a new verse, one Naya had written herself. "To sing is not to rise above, but to return to where we came from. I am voice, I am vessel, and I remember for those who were forgotten." Sometimes walked through the fields at dusk, humming a tune that made even the stars pause. Some said it was Ogi, some said it was Naya, others said they were the same, but all agreed on one thing: the mountain had once held a secret. Now it held a song,